and welcome to another Study ASMR. Today I will be reading this paper about machine learning. Specifically, it's called Neural Machine Translation by Jointly Learning to Align and Translate. This is from the ICLR conference in 2015, and now this is quite old, but you can already see I have another tab open here and it says transformers. And transformer architectures are still very relevant today. Let's write some notes first. Okay, so alongside reading I will also take notes. So let's write a heading. Neural machine translation. So I'm following a reading list and I will link it down below that goes into how transformers were developed. And even though this paper was from before transformers, that are the underlying idea behind things like ChatGPT, were created in the way they are today, this has still some of the base ideas, and some of the things that didn't work back then will be better now. So it's interesting to see, okay, because of these mistakes, now it's better, right? I will also link this paper down below because we will probably not finish it, but let's get started. First, let's look at the abstract and then you have an idea of what's going on. Neural machine translation is a recently proposed approach to machine translation. Unlike the traditional statistic machine translation, the neural machine translation aims at building a single neural network that can be jointly tuned to maximize the translation performance. The models proposed recently for neural machine translation often belong to a family of encoder-decoders, and encode a source sentence into a fixed length vector from which a decoder generates a translation. In this paper we conjecture that the use of a fixed length vector is a bottleneck in improving the performance of this basic encoder-decoder architecture, and propose to extend this by allowing the model to automatically soft search for parts of a source sentence that are relevant to predicting a target word, which, spoiler alert, turned out to be true. The fixed length vector is indeed an issue, without having to form these parts as a hard segment explicitly. With this new approach, we achieve a translation performance comparable to the existing state-of-the-art phrase-based system on the task of English to French translation. Furthermore, qualitative analysis reveals that the soft alignments found by the model agree well with our intuition. And I think this soft search for relevant pieces is kind of the basis for attention in model transformers. So before this, we had encoder-decoders that mapped sentences to fixed length vectors. And this is a bottleneck to understanding. And now we have search for relevant words. In the sentence. Each target word in the translation. Okay, now let's go on to the introduction. Neural machine translation is a newly emerging approach to machine translation, recently proposed by Kalkbrenner and Brunsom. Unlike the traditional phrase-based translation system, which consists of many small subcomponents that are tuned separately, neural machine translation attempts to build and train a single large neural network that reads a sentence and outputs a correct translation. Okay, so traditional phrase-based systems, many small subcomponents. Most of the proposed neural machine translation methods belong to a family of encoder-decoder, with an encoder and a decoder for each language, or involve a language-specific encoder applied to each sentence whose outputs are then compared. An encoder neural network reads and encodes a source sentence into a fixed length vector. A decoder then outputs a translation from the encoded vector. The whole encoder-decoder system, which consists of the encoder and decoder for a language pair, is jointly trained to maximize the probability. A potential issue with this encoder-decoder approach is that a neural network needs to be able to compress all the necessary information of a source sentence into a fixed length vector. This may make it difficult for the neural network to cope with long sentences, especially those that are longer than the sentences in the training corpus. Cho et al. Showed that indeed the performance of a basic encoder-decoder deteriorates rapidly as the length of input sentence increases. In order to address this issue, we introduce an extension to the encoder-decoder model, which learns to align and translate jointly. Each time the proposed model generates a word in a translation, it soft searches for a set of positions in the source sentence. So, where the most relevant information, the model then predicts a target word based on the context vectors associated with these source positions and all the previous generated target words. Right. I'm not entirely sure how those context vectors are created. Let's go over here. So the first few bits didn't tell us that much new, just the compression is difficult with long sentences. So now we have this new extension that learns to align to output sentence, basically. That's where the align in the title comes from. For every word in the translation. It soft searches or the part in the source sentence. Where the most relevant information is. And then what we learn is that relevant source part plus previous translated words create the context vector that is used for decoding slash generating. So I guess imagine if we have already translated this bit from the source sentence, then to fill this we use all of this and just the relevant part of the source sentence, and it does this search for every new word. That's my understanding so far. Okay. The most important distinguishing feature of this approach from the basic encoder-decoder is that it does not attempt to encode a whole input sentence into a single fixed length vector. Instead, it encodes the input sentence into a sequence of vectors and chooses a subset of these vectors adaptively while decoding the translation. We first encode all the words, probably, and then we choose a subset while decoding. This frees a newer translation model from having to squash all the information of a source sentence, regardless of its length, into a fixed length vector. And I guess one of the open questions is here, how is the subset combined into one entity? Because not all the subsets are the same length, right? So I wonder how they solved that. This allows the model to go better with long sentences. In this paper we show that the proposed approach of jointly learning to align and translate achieves significantly improved translation performance of the basic encoder-decoder approach. The improvement is more apparent with long sentences. On the task of English to French, the proposed approach achieves with a single model a translation performance comparable or close to the conventional system. Furthermore, analysis reveals that the proposed model finds a plausible soft alignment background neural machine translation. From a probabilistic perspective, translation is equivalent to finding a target sentence Y that maximizes the conditional probability of Y given a source sentence. In neural machine machine translation, we fit a parameterized model to maximize the conditional probability of sentence pairs using a parallel training corpus. What the heck is that? Once the conditional distribution is learned by translation model, given the source sentence, corresponding translation can be generated by searching for the sentence that maximizes the conditional probability. Recently, a number of papers have proposed the use of a neural network to directly learn this conditional distribution. This neural machine translation approach typically consists of two components, the first of which encodes a source sentence 6, and the second, yes, we already read that. For instance, two recurrent neural networks were used to encode a variable length source sentence into a fixed length and decode the vector into a variable length target sentence. Despite being quite a new approach, neural machine translation has already shown promising results. Adding neural components to existing translation systems to score the phrase pairs and to re-rank candidate translation has allowed us to surpass the previous state-of-the-art performance level. Okay, so previous models were good, that's fine. RNN encoder decoder. Was there anything new here? Okay, let's take some notes. So, translation from a probabilistic. I always struggle with this word, so many syllables. Probabilistic, yes. Perspective. Given the source sentence. X. Target sentence. Y. That maximizes the conditional probability so arc max of y conditional probability of y given x. Does this just mean that it's two languages? I have no idea. See if we find out later. Okay, back to the RNNs. Describe the underlying framework called RNN encoder decoder, proposed in 2014, upon which we build a novel architecture that learns to align and translate simultaneously. In the encoder-decoder framework, an encoder reads the input sentence. Oh, of course, the input sentence is a vector sequence because each word is a vector in an embedding. The most common approach is to use an RNN such that HT, oh that's the hidden state, is a function of f built by previous hidden state. And then we also have this vector C, that is the output of the encoder. F and Q are some nonlinear functions, so we take all of the hidden states and put them into a vector. So apply Q to sequence of hidden states. And apparently this can be quite easy because they used an LSTMSF, so for the hidden state, and for Q they just used the last hidden state always, so they just used the hidden state as the encoding. Now the decoder is often trained to predict the next word YT dash given the context vector and all the previously predicted words Y1 until YT dash minus 1. In other words, the decoder defines a probability over the translation Y by decomposing the joint probability into the ordered conditionals. Now this rewriting maybe doesn't make sense, but I would kind of describe it as the sentence Y is as likely as all of its beginnings together, so if the first two words are likely and then the first three words are likely and so on, and that's how this product is built. Within RNN, each conditional probability is modeled as G, where G is a nonlinear, potentially multi-layered function. Oh, it started raining. Okay. Just don't worry, it's in the video, you're not getting wet. So I guess they modeled this by saying it's a nonlinear function that outputs the probability of Y, and ST is the hidden state. It should be noted that other architectures, such as a hybrid of an RNN and a deconvolutional neural network, can be used. I, to be honest, don't know what that means, but okay. So what they're saying here is that we have G on the previous word, the context vector, and the hidden state. Not gonna lie, for now this is a lot of question marks. Possibly would need to read an RNN paper for this, right? But I think this is where I'll stop this video, and I might record another part of this. I would say let me know if you want to see that, but I will probably either record it or not. But yeah, I'll stop this video here. Might record the rest, might not, but I hope you enjoyed.